Hello and welcome to the West Yorkshire Football Show. We're chatting all things Leeds United with myself, Stephen Brown, and also Jason Bucky. You all right there, Jason?
Yeah, I'm sorry to ruin the intro, but just while the intro was playing, I was just catching up on a couple of bits on the other screen. Have you seen the VAR call from the Celtic game yesterday?
Oh, Mike, I honestly, I cannot believe that. I saw it this morning. If you haven't watched it, check it out. It's Celtic getting a goal ruled out for handball, and honestly, I've never
It's
seen
nowhere
that.
near his arm or anything.
It's crazy.
It's the
absolutely
worst VAR
crazy.
decision I've ever seen. I'm so sorry.
No, it's fine. A VAR controversy straight away to kick us off. We're here talking all things Leeds United. It's Leeds v Spurs in the Premier League tomorrow, so we've got a few threads to pull at there. If you're watching along live, if you want to get your comments in, brilliant. Smash a like on the video. Get subscribed to the channel as well. And same again if you're watching this later. Jason, well, it's been a pretty relaxed kind of week in the world of Leeds United, and it's kind of a nice place to be. We're a few games into the Premier League. Feels like the anxiety or the worry, you hit the nail on the head before saying, before that Everton game, we didn't really know what we were going to get. 6 games into it, it feels pretty settled. We look competitive. I'm finding that I've not got the same kind of stress and worry that I've had in previous Premier League seasons or maybe at the start of this season. And now I'm I've got to admit, it's the same against Bournemouth last week, but like a confidence going into the game that actually we can land a punch on these teams. But are you feeling in that similar kind of mindset with it at the moment?
Yeah, I'd agree so. Yeah, for me, the first hurdle has been conquered, and that's us showing that we're competitive.
Yeah.
And us showing that we're capable of winning games. Outside of Arsenal, we've been capable of winning all of them. And that's a huge, huge statement for a recently promoted club. We should have beaten Bournemouth at the weekend. That's a massive statement. Bournemouth are arguably, outside of Palace, the most informed Premier League team in the division.
Yeah.
You could argue that right now, in terms of, because I know Liverpool have won 5 from 5 before Palace, but for me, they probably deserve to lose a couple of them. They've not looked great. Bournemouth and Palace have looked really good throughout the whole season. So, and we not only were minutes away from winning the game 2-1, we actually deserved to win the game. We were really good value for the position that we found ourselves in, and we came from behind. We've come from behind in 2 of the games, and we've scored 5 goals over the last 2 games as well. So we've kind of shut down the narratives that we can't score and we can't create chances. And we've shown right from day one, right from the opening day against Everton, that we're capable of defending and setting up with a solid base. So, yeah, for recently promoted club, newly promoted club, we've shown everything that I would want us to see. So we then play Bournemouth at the weekend. Sure, it'd have been beautiful if we'd have won that game. This week could have felt so much nicer. But I go into tomorrow thinking we might lose, because you lose a lot of games at Premier League level, but we stand every chance of winning tomorrow as well. Spurs are going to have to play really, really well or see a really bad off day from Leeds for us to just roll over and lose that game comfortably. That's how I feel, especially at Ellen Road. Every game I feel like we stand a good chance. And at the moment, we can enjoy everybody else's meltdown. We can enjoy Forest booing the manager after only 4 games or whatever it is. We can enjoy Manchester United, just flip-flopping all over the place and had a second hammering on a weekly. We can enjoy all that. Wolves still struggling, all of these things going on around us. We can enjoy that instead.
Yeah, 100% agree with that. I've got to say, and I don't know if this paints me in a good picture or not, but I'm one of them. If there's a team in crisis, so a couple of weeks ago, before they picked up a bit of form, I was enjoying listening to fan channels of Aston Villa, just seeing fans completely freaking out. There's just something kind of I don't know, I just enjoy it. When it's not us for once, when it's other teams melting down, it's a lot of fun to watch. Daniel Farke's press conference yesterday, Jason, bit of team news ahead of it. Dan James, that's going to be kind of first talking point we're going to get into. And difficult one. He's going to be out for a while, 4 to 6 weeks. But obviously there were rumours flying around the start of the week. Some people saying ACL and out for 12 months, and that was flying around a bit. But I think Craig Bellamy, Wales manager, came out and said, no, it's just an ankle injury. And then Leeds have confirmed it's rolled his ankle in training apparently, and doctor says it's going to be 4 to 6 weeks. So after the November international break, he should be back to action. And it's a shame for James, isn't it? Because, this was the season where he felt like he could really prove himself at Premier League level. When he came to the club, and we've talked about it before, it was a difficult situation when he came in. He was playing out of position. He has these 2 years in the Championship, which served as a great reset for him, confidence builder. Daniel Farke trusts him, and he's not been able to come into the season properly fit. Didn't look fit earlier on in the games at the start of the season, and then obviously he's got this nasty injury, and it also leaves us a bit short, doesn't it, outside wide? If you talk about Gnonto being out as well.
Yeah, I think first off, from a Dan James point of view, I think it's a big shame how he's kind of come in at this season. It's not like it's his fault. I think from game week 1, he's looked half fit, and then Daniel Farke came out and said as much, that he was kind of trying to regain match fitness. He didn't have a great preseason, stopped starting in terms of the games, and with the kind of player that Dan James is, he needs to be at peak fitness because everything that he does is explosive. You know what I mean? So if you're kind of half guessing your own body, it just looks evident because technically he's not the best. We know that. And I do think for him, it's a massive season. He needs to kind of prove something at this level. I think he's had a really hard time at Leeds United as a Premier League winger. I mean, outside of a few games for Marsh in season 2, before he went to Fulham, I think there were 3 games that season where he played out on the wide. He actually set up the 3rd goal against Chelsea, I think it was, at Ellen Road. He's barely even played in his natural position of the right hand side of the midfield. He's under Bielsa, he played predominantly up front. So he's had it harsh, and it would have been nice for him to kind of cement down that right wing spot. But injuries happen, Brownie. Like, they're gonna happen. And right now, I would say that Dan James is probably one of the ones from the starting 11 that we could deal with the most. Like, I'd rather him be out than Rodon or Bogle or Goodmunson or Stack or Ampadu. And I can kind of go through the team. Dominic Calvert-Lewin, I'd say, is more important. I'd say Okafor's probably more important as well, because Dan James can kind of be replicated, or we can then have something that is considerably better in other areas, like Brendan Aronson does a totally different job to James. So it is what it is. We're going to get other injuries as well. Ankle rolls are going to happen all the time, aren't they? So From a Leeds point of view, just quickly, like, yes, with Gnonto being out as well, it leaves us a little bit shy. But I think they'll manage. I really do think they'll manage.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Because it's kind of, I agree with you 100% there, that you would, you never want to kind of have a pecking order of who gets injured first. But I absolutely agree. There's 7 or 8 players that I'd rather stay fit, to be honest. Gnonto as well, we'll touch on him a very little bit as well. I mean, Gnonto, another one who's got a lot to prove. And, it's this word potential we always hear with him. And he had a big opportunity with the transfer window, how it finished, didn't it, really? He had a real chance to kind of, play. And it's not really happened again. Didn't really do much in the early games of the season, although I thought I did think he improved defensively, ironically, but not much creatively going there. And he'll be frustrated, won't he? Because he probably knows that maybe even if he's not starting, he's probably, well, I wouldn't say next off the bench, because I actually think Harrison's done a decent job, but he probably would expect to get some game time if he was fully fit.
Yeah, I mean, he definitely is the most creative outlet, I'd say, that we have on the bench from a midfield perspective, because Jack Harrison's pretty meat and potato, get to the byline, whip the ball in. I actually think Jack Harrison's looked really good, if I'm honest. Yeah. I do. I think his cameos have been really effective. I think he's been full of energy. He's looked more comfortable on that left-hand side. People are throwing so much at him over the last couple of seasons in terms of statistics. He's not a right-sided midfielder that cuts in onto his left. That's not the kind of striker. That's not the kind of winger that he is. Yeah. He's a very direct, head down, good delivery on his left foot. But when you're delivering from the right, cutting in and whipping it on your left, you have to be super good to do that. Iron Robben, Rafinha, it's not the same doing it that way. So yeah, I think he's looked really, really good, and I think I agree with you. I think he's actually, with the game status that we've been in, Jack Harrison has actually probably been the first call for the substitution because he kind of stabilises on that left-hand side and gives us something a bit different to Okafor. So it'll be interesting to see if Okafor can get 90 at the weekend. I think that could be quite important. Or maybe not 90, but maybe 80. You know what I mean? And maybe Jack can play a role on the right-hand side. I'd rather see him stay away from the right-hand side personally, but maybe you could, you know. But I've said for as long as we've spoken on this channel about Gnonto, and I always felt like he came in at a perfect time for him in the Premier League when we were so desperate for something to grab a hold of. And he was the rose in so many thorns. He did give us a little bit of optimism. I've made the point before that Sam Allardyce said before he came in, you play him every game, because he wasn't playing at the time. He came in, started him away at Man City, I think it was, the first game, then never played him again. He never started him again. And that happened for a reason, because he's not the player that some of us have cooked us into. And then out of 2 seasons of the Championship, I've had debates back and forward on socials that Gnonto's the best out of the wingers. He wasn't. He was never the best out of the wingers in either of the seasons. And he got displaced by Solomon last season, Dan James the season before that. He was the second choice, and now he finds himself in exactly the same position. And I would argue on the right-hand side, if they were both fully fit, I'd argue that you'd start Brendan Aronson over him as well.
I agree. And a couple of interesting points you made there about Okafor and Harrison I just want to touch on as well, because I've got to say, I mean, you know, it's funny with Harrison as well, because if you'd have asked me 3 months ago, I was like, I never want to see him in a Leeds shirt again. And I'll be honest with you, that feeling now is completely dissolved. I just don't, and I feel his cameos when he's come on as a sub, his control looks do you know what it is? He's not giving the ball away. He looks composed. We know he's got a great first touch, and he's just helping. He's just helping, and it's just encouraging to see. Yeah,
he really wants it, and that's all you can ask for. You know, like, it's funny the way that people have reacted to Brendan Aronson over the last 2 seasons. Jack Harrison's basically covered over all of that in a couple of weeks. You know, I put a bit of money behind bar. There were a few boos. The week after, there were a few less boos. Come the weekend, people were clapping him onto the pitch. You what I want there,
get your wallet out, lad. Get your wallet out. That'll put pints in people. That'll be fine.
I agree with you completely. Though me and you both said in pre-season we don't want to see him anywhere near the team, and I just, I'm not too big to say that we said that, and I that's exactly how I felt at the time. I thought it'd be a bad apple. The quality of the player as well wasn't worth taking back. But he's come back in and offered us something to the squad. I came round to the idea pretty quickly because I thought, well, you know what, it's going to bulk out our squad. Him on the bench is better than most options that we would have at Premier League, bottom end Premier League level. So he'll play a part.
I will say credit to you as well, because you did caveat all this with saying that this is an experienced Premier League winger with a lot of pace, and I think that was forgotten by a lot of people. I think you did make note of that, which I think is credit to you as well, because it's proving when we're seeing what he's doing when he's coming on the pitch.
It's just fair, you know. It's the same argument that had made around us signing Sean Longstaff, and so many people were frustrated and upset about that signing. And it's like, this is a player that's made 200 Premier League appearances. Same for Jack Harrison. 5 seasons back-to-back in the Premier League. Whether he's played well or not, the managers have seen him to be of an efficient level, including Marcelo Bielsa, to play week in, week out at Premier League level. And another thing that I've always mentioned with Jack as well is his availability. He's very rarely injured. I can't remember Jack ever being injured, if I'm honest. I can't remember ever being injured, which is testament to him and his mentality. Because I'm telling you now, between 2019 when we came up and now, there'll have been plenty of weeks where he'll have been suffering, bruises, bumps, little strains, little niggles, and he'll have got through it and played. That's a huge testament. And physically, your body being able to hold up to that, that's down to how hard he works in pre-season, in training, in stretching, to make sure that his body is physically ready for it as well. So there's a lot to be said about them things. There's loads of deficiencies with Jack Harrison, but there's also positives, and you have to be fair when you're trying to create a balanced debate or argument in something. As much as we want him, I'm not going to sit here and just slag off everything that he does if that's not the reality.
No, it's true as well. And you wonder, and we touched on this, when Longstaff got the players together after the goal, and you wonder about that camp that Harrison's gone back into, because it feels like, from what I'm seeing for Jack, it seems almost, you get these small glimpses, don't you, from training videos and Instagram posts, but it feels to me like he's enjoying being at Leeds in a way that he never seemed to really kind of, I don't know, he always seemed on the periphery for me, even the Bielsa promotion and everything. And I don't know if it's because he was on loan for 3 seasons consecutively or what, but he seemed to be on the edge of it. Whereas now it's almost like, he's a little bit older. I think he's about 28 maybe or something now. He's a little bit older, a little bit wiser. It's a different environment. I think we're getting a sense of how strong the group is at Leeds. And there's a lot of factors to that. You can go back to Ampadu making up the promotion bonus equal amongst the squad last year, so there was a lot of good feeling from that, and it certainly feels like a very together squad, and hopefully he can add it. And I was going to lead on to Premier League experience in general. I mean, this feels exactly what we didn't have last time. If you look at that season we went down, we basically had very little Premier League experience, apart from the players that have been getting battered every, week in, week out for 2 years. You look at Calvert-Lewin, you look at Sean Longstaff, you look at Jack Harrison coming in, you've got real Premier League experience. And it's interesting listening to Everton fans this week, talk about their strikers, Beto not having it, Barry just, and they're all saying if DCL had been there, he'd have been the perfect role model for these guys to come in. Not the perfect striker, but so important.
I think it's been a top signing. I mean, I don't want to skip over too much at once there, because quite a lot to.
Yeah.
I 100% agree with you with the Premier League experience. They were very evidently trying to make sure that they blended the international signings that we made with the Premier League experience ones that we needed. And outside of season 2 and 3. Sorry, outside of season 1, in season 2 and 3 under Bielsa and Marsh and the others, it was so evident that we were missing that. So evident that we were missing that. You're right. Every bit of Premier League experience we had was what we created in season 1. And it's funny with Jack, and you make that point. I actually think that there's a couple of things at hand. I think he's not very relatable. Luke Ayling feels like one of us. Stuart Dallas feels like one of us. Even Liam Cooper, to a point, felt like one of us, and even though he got a load of grief and stick. But I think the position in which they play is far easier for us to kind of say he had a 7 out of 10, he had an 8 out of 10. Jack Harrison, in the creative sense, would give away the ball, and we'd get frustrated with him. All the fan bases would get frustrated with him. Patrick Bamford had missed chances, and we'd get frustrated with him. This relates to anybody in that area of the pitch, really. Clicky felt like one of us, smoking the cigar and having a beer and all that. All them little moments. Jack's not like that, and it's hard sometimes for a fan base to then, how few people are going to be like, oh, Jack Harrison's my favourite Leeds player. It's just isn't going to be one of them things, is it? And I think we have a little bit of that going on now. Brendan Aronson had put straight into that situation. Then them areas of the pitch you expect more, and also you are so hypercritical of every time they make a mistake. Jayden Bogle makes a mistake and it goes out for a corner. It's different. You know what I mean? It's just a different level. So yeah, I think there's a few things at play, and probably the loan situation as well, and then the mum situation definitely didn't help. And his interview when he left, was a little bit, I don't know, we just wanted more personality, Jack. Just tell us how much you love us, and like this is a decision that it's not been made lightly, and I'm gutted that we've been relegated. Whatever.
It was like, see ya, I'm out of here.
It was just weird, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So, but look, that's all water under the bridge now, and the water has subsided a lot. And Leeds fans now, and him. This is another point I wanted to make. In that last season, we have to remember with Jack Harrison what he went through. Yeah. He was told to leave in January and then called back at the last second, messed around. So you were told, we don't want you. Go away. And then brought back in. And bear in mind, between January and May, he was our best player.
Yeah.
Rodrigo got injured and he was our best player. If we were going to stay up, it was down to Jack Harrison, which is mental when I think about it, but it's the truth. He was the one that was really trying to carry the team on his back, and he weren't good enough to do that, really. He's not a Rafinha, but he was the one that was trying to stand up and be counted. So, you know, he didn't owe us anything either, really. He didn't.
No, absolutely. And sometimes the facts of that get lost, don't they, in the emotion and, like you say, what his mum said and everything. And yeah, hopefully it can be that redemption arc for Jack as well, because if it is a redemption arc, it helps Leeds. And look, you know, if he gets a move next summer or whatever, or if he can stay and contribute, it's going to help us, and that's what we want to see. I mean, the kind of worst kind of situation is more like what happened with Verber in a way, where it just kind of pitters out, and there's just you know, they end up just leaving, and it's a low fee, and you know that's what you don't want. You know, I'd hate to see that with Jack. You know, let's hopefully get some value out of it either way. You mentioned Okafor as well, and that's an interesting one. How key is it that he completes a 90? Because what I see with Okafor is he's very powerful, and he's you know he's like a sprinter, isn't he? He's like a 100-meter sprinter, but he looks out of puff, doesn't he? When it gets to that kind of middle of the second half, he looks like he's blowing a little bit. How do you see that kind of working? Does he just need to get that overall fitness up, or I mean, I don't know. It's a funny one, really.
He obviously didn't play a lot last season. He only played 5 games on loan at Napoli as they won the title, and you know it's hard to know what he's had in pre-season. He's had injuries over the last couple. Daniel Farke's levels are so much higher. The Premier League levels are so much higher, so he's catching up a little bit. What I do know with Okafor is he's the one player when he gets on the ball that I believe can beat players. Him and Jadon Bogle. From an attacking sense, within that final third, he's the only one that is going to do it consistently. And I really do feel he is key to us winning games. It feels like that. And I know it's only been maybe 4 or 5 moments over the Fulham, Wolves, and then
Bournemouth.
Bournemouth games that we've seen. It's probably more than that. It's probably between 5 and 10. You know, in that Wolves game, he had more dribbles than any other Premier League player since Wilfred Zaha in 2017. That shouldn't be overlooked. He was getting at his fullback. He was committing him, and he obviously scores. Like, I like him when he's on the ball. The problem that I have with Okafor is it seems like he spends a lot of time going hiding. So he'll have big periods of the game out of the game. 20 minutes, which is way too long. And then he'll just, he's there. I forgot about him. And then he'll do something. He'll beat 3 or 4 players. Whereas in that time, Brendan Aronson's touched the ball 20, 25, 30 times. And unfortunately, because of his technical deficiencies, we're not getting as much from it. We want the ball a little bit more to Okafor. So, especially with Gunmunson down that side as well. You know what I mean? Gunmunson's such a key component going forward. So, but hopefully that'll come to him as he gets more match fit and gets sharper and gets more. I like how much grief Daniel Farke's been giving him. You know, I made this point on socials the other day, like, he won't give this kind of grief to Daniel James. Well, yeah, but Daniel James is playing as his max capacity. And Daniel Farke recognises that. So he congratulates him for getting his 10 out of 10 out there on the pitch. No, Okafor's levels are Champions League levels. He's a top player. So when he's then delivering the same level as Daniel James's 8, it's a 5 because he's capable of so much more. And that's okay. It's up to the manager to manage his stars in a certain way. You know what I mean? And that's what you do.
Yeah, I think I saw the same tweet where someone had said, you know, how criticising how Farke manages his wingers, and I replied to it. I just said, yeah, he clearly doesn't know how to manage his wingers. We scored so few goals last season, didn't we?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, if you hang on, Somerville, James, Solomon. I mean, you know, there's endless examples of us absolutely smashing it on the wings. So for me, whatever he's doing is right, and I agree with you. I think he's a player that, you know, maybe you can poke a little bit to get to that next level, because if you start accepting, like you say, a lower level, yes, it might be as good as Dan James's 8, but no, there's more. There's clearly a higher ceiling there. We know it, and I agree with you as well. He needs to be more involved. I want to see a bit more involvement.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's what's happened with Ramazani. I think the situation with Ramazani is that his technical ability is clearly there. We've seen it, but there's attitude issues and delivering issues. And I think Daniel Farke prefers to know the consistent level of somebody working to their absolute peak is actually more productive than somebody that's capable of more, but will often give a 6 or a 5. You know, like, and I think that's affected my management personally.
Absolutely. No, absolutely. I was just, do you know what? I was having a little cheeky look to see if Ramazani played in their last game, but I mean, you know, he's a bencher at the minute. He's on the bench. I don't even think he made it off the bench. Oh yeah, he did. But you know, that says it all. A couple other things then from the presser as well, Jay. Some good news though on the injury front. Lucas Perry back in training. Won't play the next game. It's a bit too early for him, but hopefully he'll be able to build up, which is great, isn't it? I think, you know, for me, you know, I know there's a kind of, you know, some people saying Darlow's now kind of earned and kept the shirt. What I would say is I think, you know, it's almost like that ceiling thing again. I think Perry, I've always said I would have loved him to have had 10 to 15 games to get really comfortable in the system and the setup, and I think he'd have been away. So for me, when he's had a couple of weeks team training, I think he needs to be dropped back in. And I'm not having a go at Darlow. I think Darlow's been excellent, but I think Darlow is what Darlow is. I think he's a really good backup option. I think we've gone and got Perry for a reason.
100%. I think it's nice to know that you've got that backup in there. You know, like if we do have an injury, we're not thinking, oh my God, you know, like some teams, they really have to step down the levels, don't they, when they go to the number 2 keeper, and it doesn't feel like that with Carl. I think Carl's, what he's really shown is his capabilities with his feet. I think his footwork has just improved so much and his distribution's improved so much, and that's something that Perry has to do as well. But yeah, I'd agree. Like, this is again a top-level keeper that we signed for a reason. I put in the same category as getting Okafor out onto the pitch, getting Stack out onto the pitch, Calvert-Lewin onto the pitch. I'd maybe even throw Jacobiol into there as well, who we can maybe talk about at some point. But you want to get your summer signings that have signed because they're Premier League level players onto the pitch, and because at some point or another, Lucas Perry will save us the points that'll make the difference. You know, I've watched the goal a few times from the Bournemouth game.
Yeah.
And there is, I'm not saying it's his fault, not by any stretch of the imagination. I'm not saying it's Caldwell's fault. But you know, if Nick Pope at Burnley was in net, he saves that and they win the game 2-1. Because it's not unsavable. It just comes past him at quite a good height. And Carl's completely rooted to the spot. Does Lucas Perry save that?
Yeah.
You know, it's them moments that I'm talking about. So, yeah, definitely for me, he comes back in.
But it's super interesting that. And, you know, the Bijol thing is worth mentioning as well, because, I mean, he's yet to play a minute in the Premier League, I think, this season. Saw him in the League Cup, obviously. I thought it's really difficult because I think Struijk's done well. But, you know, my problem with Struijk is when the game's going well, he's brilliant. But when we're up against it, or when traffic's coming the other way, I think his decision making starts to go downhill fast. And I like you just said, then is it time to maybe bring Bijol into it? The problem is though, the Premier League, how tough it is. Can you just drop any player in? You know, that's going to be the problem. It feels almost like a centre-back is going to have to get injured for Bijol to get his opportunity.
It's really, really tough. I would guess that at some point Pascal will pick up an injury, because he always does. Yaka will come in, and then it'll be up to him to keep the spot, and hopefully he doesn't get injured and he performs to the level that we're expecting him to. You know, he could, as good as we've looked so far, he could take our level a little bit higher. Yeah. Could. You know, I think Pascal's good from set pieces as well, but Biel's really good in the air. You know, his ball playing capabilities, I think, will probably end up being better than Pascal. I think his ball playing skills, Pascal, are so overinflated. Yeah. I've mentioned this for years. I think he's an okay, all-round centre-back. I said last season he was a top 6 championship centre-back, and I think that's where he was. I think his levels so far this season have shown that he's capable of playing well at Premier League level. Whether that can be sustained or not is a different question. he's still got loads of things on his side as well. He's still pretty young, is Pascal, and he's got loads of experience for his age. So he has got time to develop, and I'm pleased that he's played as well as he has at the beginning of this season. But it always feels like, from a defensive point of view, that is where our shortfall is coming from. It comes from Pascal. It has done for the last 2 seasons, and it will do this season as well. Like, Joe Rodon's capable of making mistakes, of course he is, and Jaden Bogle is as well. I think Gabby's looked really sound so far defensively. But consistently Pascal's going to have 1 or 2 per game. So, yeah.
Point. Yeah, no, I agree. I think, I worry about Pascal a little bit when it's a tight game and when we're up against it a little bit. That's where I think his decision making can sometimes go a bit loose. Another one that Farke talked about in the press conference, Joel Peru. So Farke was asked about Peru's belief. He still has a chance in this system. Farke said he's the best finisher he's ever worked with, and he's worked with the likes of Teemu Pukki, Thuram. He's confident there will still be a part to play for the Dutch striker, and he does praise Peru's attitude. Very interesting one, Jay, because I mean, for me, if Calvert-Lewin comes off, Nemecha is straight in there, because he does basically similar things, not to the level of Calvert-Lewin, but I just can't deal with us not having that physical presence up top, and Peru just isn't that. And I just don't think there's going to be the games where, Peru comes on and can, affect it, as a sub. I don't know. I mean, I could be wrong, but the games are so hard and so physical. I just don't know where that's going to exist for him.
I really hoped that he would make an impact at Premier League level, and I felt like he would get the chance to score a goal. And I do think he's a top finisher. I mean, he's one of the best, most calm finishers we've had for a long, long time. It does make me laugh when managers say that. We've heard managers say that about their own strikers before at Leeds. I can't remember who it was before, but we've had the same conversation before with regards to, like, he's the best finisher I've ever worked with. I mean, that just can't be true. I just refuse to believe that. But anyway, he is a top finisher. He's very composed, very good on both feet. In and around the box, there's nobody within the squad that I would want the ball to fall to more than Joel Peru. He's a top finisher. Think about the 4 that he scored against Stoke towards back end of last season. I mean, everything that he hits went in. He was top scorer for a reason. He's a player. But within the system at Premier League level, it's hard to see how he exists. The last 3 games have improved so much because we've been able to go a bit more direct at times. Not all the time. Sometimes we build up through the lines, and that's fine. But if we do need to go long, we can hit Calvert-Lewin, and that he's either going to win a flick on, or the ball's going to bounce off the defender and we're going to win a throw-in, or we're going to win a free kick, or he's going to chase it into the channel. Joe Peru just can't do that. He's a completely different striker. He will forever get lost in between Premier League and Championship level for me, unless he goes into a much better side. It's a funny one because there's a gap for Joel Peru where he can't really exist at the bottom, and the middle teams wouldn't take a chance on him. But if he was to actually be in a really good side, and you can say, I'm going to create you loads of chances, we're going to do all the work for you, you just go and stand over there, and we're going to get the ball into that area, and you put it in the back of the net, he'd probably look better again. You know what I mean? Like, he'd probably look really good in a Brighton or something like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He's capable of doing that. So, but I don't see how he exists in this side, really.
No, and I think that was a major problem with the Arsenal game. We saw it right there where we couldn't go long, and it killed us. It absolutely killed us.
Saliba and Gabriella never have had an easier day. It were a walk in the park for them, whereas Calvert-Lewin had at least stuck an elbow on him and bullied him around a little bit. You know what I mean? I've been really impressed with Calvert-Lewin. Really impressed. Like, obviously, I spent years watching him, but you watch the odd Everton game for 90 minutes, and then you watch the odd match of the day or whatever. I always knew he was a capable striker. He had that really good season under Carlo Ancelotti. But when you watch, when a player like him comes and joins your team, and you watch them in the way that you watch it as a fan of the club, you see the capability so much more. And he's so much further on than what I thought it was going to be in terms of technical level as a number 9. I mean, people have been saying, "Oh, we might as well keep Bamford." I mean, he's head and shoulders in front of Bamford in terms of what you want from this striker. I think Bamford's a top striker, by the way. He was a top striker, but very, very different to Calvert-Lewin. Very, very different.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly, absolutely. Couple of interesting subplots then for the game against Spurs. The return of Archie Gray, and there's an interesting article I was reading on The Athletic today from the Spurs writer about Archie Gray and where he's at in his Spurs career, and it's pretty fascinating because he came in. I mean, actually, it went into detail a little bit about when Brentford went after him, and Brentford had a set plan for him, which was going to he was going to play in midfield. He was going to get a lot of game time, and he was going to be tutored by Norsgaard. He was going to have that kind of influence on him. And apparently that's what sold it for Gray. It was like this really set plan and development, and obviously they would sell him on later. And then Spurs came in last minute, Ange Postecoglou, get you in. And he's almost been a victim of the chaos a little bit, because obviously then he plays all these games in the centre-back role last season. This season, Thomas Frank has come in, and it's a little bit tricky because he's basically, apart from Basuma, he's kind of like fifth choice midfielder there, and it's a little bit of a crossroads slightly for him. Would a loan move help him, or what's going on there? And you just wonder, because obviously these are key years for him, and we know how talented he is. But yeah, it's not kind of that pathway at Spurs, and it's kind of almost like a bit of a warning to young players. Is like, what's the plan for you? Yes, it's great going to a big team, but what's the plan? Because obviously you get bigger wages at Spurs and everything, but in terms of development as a player, was that the best decision? You look at Bergvall, obviously same age, but he's like a fully formed, slot straight in. He looks up to the level immediately. With Archie, it's a different beast. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how he gets on there.
It's interesting how it's developed out that Thomas Frank got him a year later. It's a funny one, because I think obviously on the face of it, the better move would be Tottenham. You never know when Brentford are going to eventually fall back into the Championship, because I think they will. I think it'll probably be this season, to be honest with you. But at some point, time is going to catch up with them, because they're not going to always be able to outdo themselves in terms of the recruitment. And, it'll be interesting to see how they get on this season. They have looked better than what I thought they would, even though they've still struggled in certain games. But yeah, I think the career trajectory for Archie is tricky. He's still only really young. He came onto the scene really, really young. Spurs have got a habit of doing this with young players, of bringing them in, playing a few games, going out, and then ended up either going on loan or leaving the club altogether. I think over the years, players like Wayne Routledge, our own Joe Rodon did exactly the same, signed for them, 10 games, couldn't get a game, back down the system again. And there's countless others that they've done this. Jed Spence for another one.
Yeah.
I know he's now eventually coming back into it, and he's kind of reinvented himself as Jed Spence. I'm really happy for him, actually, because I actually think you see a really naive young footballer there that has got it wrong. People that throw Jed Spence at Daniel Farke always confuse me, because it weren't just Daniel Farke, it were Neil Warnock, it were the Spurs managers as well that then signed him. There were several.
They only brought him because Spurs had so many injuries as well. He only got given a chance literally because there were so many injuries.
Yeah. But
it wasn't like, he's really done well and we're going to throw him in.
He went to Genoa and did stinky, and then he went back out on loan. I think it was to Rennes as well and did stinky. So, and you're right. They had so many injuries. He ended up getting his chance, and he's taken it. And fair play to him. He's now built an England international on the back of it, become an England international on the back of it. Clearly a talented player, but if your attitude's not right at the time and you need experience and something to happen to change that, then that's fine. But that's not on Daniel Farke. No. You know what I mean? Or any other manager that's managed him. So, they have got a bit of a habit of it of Spurs, but I think eventually you'll see a player in Archie, whether he has to go out on loan to find, first team football. I think it's important that he's playing at Premier League level on a regular basis. Yeah. I mean, maybe at some point it comes to us.
I'm going to say loan. Did you take a loan back in January?
Yeah, I don't know if we need a player in that position.
No, I don't. I don't think play.
Yeah, well, I would he get in over Stack?
I wouldn't have him in it. I wouldn't have him in the three. I wouldn't have him in the three above what we've got. No.
Yeah, you'd maybe put him ahead of Tanaka and Gruev, but I don't know if you'd put him ahead of the three that are in there at the minute. No. Not with the form that we're seeing, and it's horses for courses, isn't it? Again, because Spurs should really be able to facilitate the development of a young player in that area of the pitch. Whereas for us to do it in a situation where we're hoping to just stay up is quite risky. You know what I mean? So
yeah, it's going to be an interesting one, and the narrative around Thomas Frank as well, and they've had a mixed couple of results, but they're sitting well in the league, fourth in the table, but just interesting how quickly that tide of opinion can change. I mean, there are Spurs fans having a whinge about him, and it seems absolutely crazy. I mean, he's been in charge for how long? He's had a few games. There is an interesting aspect that some people are saying they're a bit one-dimensional in terms of attack, and it's always interesting when you get a manager who's coming from a lower level that then goes into a situation maybe with better players, how they can coach that aspect. I mean, people always slate Pep, don't they? Go, well, he was, he had all these fantastic players at his disposal. Yes, but then how do you set them up? How do you set those brilliant players up? And I think there's probably a few Spurs fans that are going, well, is it going to work that way with Frank? Is he got enough about him to be able to coach that way? Obviously, it's very, early doors. But at Brentford, it's almost like, do you ever think that there's a level that certain coaches are at that suits them perfectly? Brentford, they could mix it up, long ball, physicality. Didn't matter if they sat back for 75 minutes, and then when you go to a club like Spurs, it's completely different what the expectations are and what the fans demand.
The pressure levels are just totally different, aren't they? And when you can play without stress and pressure, you can play to a completely different level. That's why you can find non-league teams able to beat Premier League teams, because there's no pressure involved. You're able to kind of push yourself beyond your levels. I think you're absolutely spot on. I think there's a lot of managers that have fallen into that category. I think the one that I instantly think of is Roy Hodgson.
Yeah,
Roy Hodgson was a top manager, and you speak to a lot of the players that played under him, they'll tell you how great of a coach he was. But every time he stepped up in level, he really struggled. He was so capable at Fulham to make miracles. He was the manager that took them all the way to the Europa League final, I think it was, beat Juventus over two legs. Yet when he stepped up to Liverpool, when he stepped up to England, before all that, when he stepped up to Inter Milan, you know what I mean? Like he just couldn't quite manage that scale of club. There's a certain persona in there that's attached to their managers that can. Sir Alex Ferguson, Arsene Wenger, Klopp in more recent years, just got it about him. Pep is another one. And we've seen big managers go into big clubs recently and instantly fail. Amorim right now, he's just not got the persona, and the Ten Hag didn't have it either. He just hasn't got that. You don't know what it is. You can't even describe it. Something within him. So yeah, it's an interesting one. I think it was the right appointment for Spurs at the time, given probably the scale and the availability of the manager. Like, what do they do? Do they go down that route again? Because they've tried the Jose Mourinho route, established manager. They've tried the radical tactical manager in Ange. I think they've actually probably created a role there where they've got a safe pair of hands. I think Spurs fans just need to get in the lane a little bit.
Yeah. Taking a look round the rest of the league as well. I mean, you mentioned Ange there and Forest losing again last night, and I think there's a chance he could be gone soon. I really do. I think that
you've called it since day one.
I just think it's amazing really, because 2 years ago, Ange comes in to Tottenham, huge success at Celtic, flying out of the blocks with Spurs, top of the league for a while, and then it's just crashed and burned. I mean, they were cut open, it was set pieces last night. He doesn't obviously believe in kind of much set piece kind of coaching and, that kind of thing. And we've heard that kind of talk before. And I think the days of the managers who this is what we do, set in stone, carte blanche. We don't move away from this. I just wonder if those days are a bit numbered. You've seen Pep now. Pep's adjusting. Pep's changing it. That's why I think I'm really happy with what we're doing, because we look flexible enough. It wasn't right. We've got Joel Peru up front because we want that type of striking. We want to just pass it around all day. We've mixed it up. You just wonder if the days of almost like Bielsa-esque, where it's one thing and that's it. I just think these days you're just going to get cut apart.
I couldn't agree more with you, mate. I mean, again, we talk about Bielsa a lot. I absolutely love the guy and I love the football. Yeah. But when you have only one way of playing, it creates a real problem. A real problem, because you can then be extremely exposed by somebody that's willing to be versatile and do stuff differently. And we saw that. I mean, what we saw in season 1 was a set of opposition that were like, what on earth is this?
Yeah.
But in season 2, I can tell you now exactly what we started seeing. The centre-back would pick the ball up for the opposition, especially the good teams, and they would run right through the middle of the pitch. That was how they overcame our press. So the player that was left with the ball, because it's 10v10, and we would try and man mark. If you had a centre-back that could beat that first man, it then opened up the whole game, because the players that were then being man marked would just go like that. Yeah. And the centre back, I remember it clear as day against Liverpool. Canate doing it several times.
Liverpool ones, oh my god!
He'd end up on edge of box before somebody would approach him, because we were so rigid in man marking the passing options that then we left it to that one player to just run through the pitch. So there's always a way around, especially the more quality you get in terms of the players. Your scope of capabilities being able to be versatile increases even more and more and more. So. Yeah, you're absolutely spot on, mate. These managers that are unable and not able to change, and that's you've hit the nail on the head. Daniel Farke's impressed me so much with that, right from word go, saying, you know what, we're going to go with that 10. I think we'd have signed a 10. We'd have signed a 10 if he'd have really wanted to play the 4-2-3-1, because we didn't have one. We didn't. He went, you know what? No. From the first game of pre-season, we're going to play with a 3. We're playing 4-1-4-1, and that 3 in that midfield are going to protect us. We're going to be more pragmatic. We're going to be more structured, and we're going to have a proper guard for the defence.
Yeah,
that's proper management. Proper management.
100% agree. 100% agree. And you've got an example in Amorim, haven't you, where it's like he's playing Mason Mount as left wing back because he's just so hyper. Can't get away from this, 3-5-2. You just think, Jesus, man. Honestly, it's absolutely mental.
I mean, they've got a double barrel at the minute of Manchester United, because, and I've said this from day one of this season, they don't have a very good team.
No,
they don't. I've just scrolling through Twitter earlier. There's been a lot of 1-11s put on between them and Sunderland, because I played Sunderland this weekend, and the 50-50, and that's fair.
Yeah,
and that's a team that we wouldn't be shocked at all if it went down.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
We shouldn't be that shocked that Manchester United are in and around where they are, because they're crap. They're just crap. And then you've also got a manager that's out of his depth, that's forcing a tactic on a set of players that are crap, that can't play it. And then you've got the core problem going on behind the scenes, that they're rotten from the ground up, whereas we have such the opposite of that, thankfully.
Well, it's amazing to see, but I mean, it's like Cunha. I saw a bit of Cunha last week, and he looks as if he's already got to that stage where he's fed up of being there. And you're like, Jesus, man, this club, like you say, rotten. Score predictions for tomorrow, then, Jay. Before we sign off, Leeds versus Spurs. It's a 12:30 kickoff, and it's a bit of a busy weekend actually. I think there's got 3 games tomorrow, or 4 games tomorrow, and then there's 4 games tomorrow at 2:00.
Sunday.
On Sunday, sorry. It's a bit bizarre. But score predictions and your general feeling for how it's going to go tomorrow.
This is probably a bit of a weak answer, because I gave it last weekend, but my heart says that we can win the game, obviously. My head probably says that it'll be 1-1. But that's exactly what I said against Bournemouth, and unfortunately I was a little bit more right than I wanted to be. I didn't think we would be as good as what we were against Bournemouth. I didn't think we'd control the game for as large parts as what we did. I think this is very similar. I think it's very, very similar. We're very capable of getting something at Ellen Road from this game against Spurs. They're not unbeatable. They can be got at. it's a tough one, real tough one. I'll say 1-1. I'll say 1-1, and I take it now. I would take 1-1 now.
Yeah, I would take a draw, admittedly. I actually think we get a statement win. I think we get a win, maybe 2-0, 2-1, whatever, 1-0, not bothered. But I think we get the win where it makes everyone go, oh, like what Sunderland got last week, and everyone's talking about Sunderland. I think we're going to get a result that's going to make everyone sit up and go, oh, Leeds are serious. Because obviously, everybody's talking now. I've listened to a lot of podcasts where people are saying, "Oh, the promoted teams are doing really well this season," but it's obviously Sunderland that are getting the most kind of praise, rightly so. They've done brilliantly, and I think people are sleeping on Leeds a little bit, and I think we'll beat Spurs, and I think people will be like, "Oh, they're a sick," because I was listening to one podcast, and teams are not creating that much against us, and we should have had 3 more points than what we've got.
We should, and we'd be in the top 4, and everybody would be kind of waxing lyrical. I think we've gone really under the radar. I don't mind that. If I'm honest, I hope you're right. I'm not shocked. I'm really, really not shocked. And again, I will keep on saying that I maintain this all the way through pre-season. The landscape of people's opinions based on the promoted sides have been completely skewed by the last 2 years. Sheffield United, Burnley in the first reincarnation with Luton, and then last season with Leicester, Southampton and Ipswich. They weren't fit for Premier League football. They just weren't. They weren't capable. And I posted in the group this morning, it's interesting that the highest placed relegated side is Leicester in 6th at the minute. Middlesbrough and Coventry occupy the top 2 spots. I mean, we made mincemeat of all of them pretty much last season. You've got Ipswich and Southampton in 13th and 14th place in the division. And I know it's only 8 games, but it's still a good indicator of where it's at. Ipswich are not, I don't even think Ipswich will finish in the top 6 this season. I really don't. I think Southampton will probably pull it round because I think they've got a little bit of quality there. Leicester are probably going to get a points deduction at some point, and they'll probably miss out on the top 6 as well. So it goes to show you how far off it was. If Leeds were in the Championship again with this team in the Championship would win every game. It'd win every game. It'd win every game. But even last season, last season's team again in the Championship this season would probably 110 points. It probably would with Cardalo in there. You know what I mean? So yeah, I just think it's completely skewed. And last season, you didn't go into any game believing that Leicester stood a chance.
No.
Southampton stood a chance. You just didn't. Ipswich, I think, put up a bit of a fight for half a season. But even they became, it's Ipswich are going to lose. Yeah. So I'm hoping I'm not speaking too soon. We're only 6 games in. So we do have to give it time. But it feels, the way that we're playing Browney feels sustainable.
Yeah,
it feels like this can continue throughout the season.
Agree. 100%. Right, we're going to wrap it up there. Thank you very much for everyone who's watched along. Get your comments in, get your likes on the video. Please subscribe to the channel. Myself and Jason will be back at some point over the weekend to give our thoughts and reaction to the Spurs game as well. So do keep an eye out on that. I've been Stephen Brown. With me has been Jason. Thank you very much, Jason.
Thank you, mate.
And we'll see you again soon. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.